Our land acknowledgement gives us both a sense of place and an opportunity to honor and recognize both those who came before us on this land and those who are bringing back traditional practice to this, our Mother Earth. 6 years ago, astronomers released the first ever image of a black hole. Located 55 million light years from Earth, the image shows a bright ring of light. That ring surrounds a central dark region that astronomers call the shadow of the black hole, the absence of light that makes black holes such compelling objects. The bright ring is superheated matter swirling around it, an indication of the black hole's great power. After consulting an expert on Hawaiian culture and language, astronomers gave this black hole the name Powehi. Po is the powerful, creative darkness Hawaiian chiefs sing about in their sacred chant of creation. Wehi is a sort of ceremonial crown that chiefs wear, indicating their status. One translation of Powehi might be the infinite, unformed, dark, from which creation springs, crowned to show its great power. Astronomers consider the name Powehi to be a gift from Hawaiian culture. In and around Santa Cruz, there's been a strong connection to Hawaiian culture. I think surfing has a lot to do with it. But I've noticed that this connection to Hawaii often supersedes the connection to the indigenous people who lived here for millennia and still live here and elsewhere. So we now take time to honor the Amamutsun. This land, this place of our gathering, rests on the unceded territory of Awaswas and Mutsun-speaking tribes of the Central Coast. The Amamutsun tribal band are descendants of indigenous people taken to missions Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization. Today, the Amamutsun are working to keep their traditions alive and heal from historic trauma. We look to connect with them, learn from them, and discover their gifts.
The light we kindle today is a cousin to the light from the most distant stars, unimaginably far from our planet. The warmth of this light is kin to the molten heat at the heart of our earth. And the dancing flame of this light echoes in the heart of each person seeking to live and breathe and be. So in this spirit, we light the chalice flame.
Today's reading is called Singularity and was written by the poet Marie Howe. It was inspired by the life and work of Stephen Hawking. Singularity. Do you sometimes want to wake up to the singularity we once were? So compact, nobody needed a bed or food or money. Nobody hiding in the school bathroom or home alone, pulling open the drawer where the pills are kept. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Remember? There was no nature, no them. No tests to determine if the elephant grieves her calf or if the coral reef feels pain. Trashed oceans don't speak English or Farsi or French. Would that we could wake up to what we were when we were ocean, and before that, to when sky was earth and animal was energy and rock was liquid and stars and space was not at all. Nothing. Before we came to believe humans were so important, before this awful loneliness. Can molecules recall it? What once was? Before anything happened? No I, no we, no one, no was, no verb, no noun, only a tiny, tiny dot brimming with is, 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 is. All, everything, home.
A long time ago, I had an odd experience that has stayed in my memory. This was years ago. I was in what they call a restorative yoga class, where you spend pretty much all the time lying down in various very, very comfortable positions, propped up by pillows and bolsters and foam blocks. It's just lovely. I was enjoying this class, hanging out in one of these restorative poses, and I was feeling really calm and relaxed. My eyes were closed. I was on the verge of falling asleep. And all of a sudden, I had this really weird feeling like I was floating in outer space. I mean, literally, somehow my brain thought for just a moment that I was floating in space. And I remember there was this really strange sensation that like I didn't have an identity anymore. Like my name had sort of floated away, and all the little facts about me, like my job, my family, my friends, they were just kind of gone. And it was just me floating in space, only there wasn't really a me there anymore either. It's hard to explain. And for about half a second, it was just about the coolest thing I have ever experienced. And then a split second later, I thought, wait, what? Where am I? What am I doing in space? It was actually really terrifying. So a second later, I guess I just kind of dragged my mind back and sort of crash landed back in my body. And I sat up with my heart pounding. I had no idea what had happened. I still don't really. I mean, I don't know, some kind of accidental astral projection thing. I don't know. It's never happened again, but it really was quite scary. So I'm a science fiction fan, and as you may know, in sci-fi, if you're drifting all alone in space, it's usually not a good thing. Not a good thing. And in fact, it was sci-fi, especially the Star Trek universe of shows and movies. Woo woo, Star Trek. That was what gave me my most vivid sense of what space might be like. Or as Captain Picard of the Next Generation Star Trek crew used to say in the theme song, space. So much to explore, to discover, but also so many dangers lurking, including the most terrifying of all, the black hole. A black hole with its gravitational pull so immense that nothing that comes too close can avoid getting sucked in, not even light. At its heart, what we call a singularity, a mass of unimaginable, infinite density. At its borders, an event horizon, a threshold which, once crossed, can never be escaped. Ever since I've learned about black holes as a child, I've always been frightened by that image of being sucked into a black hole, forever trapped on the far side of everything that you've ever known. Now, I know it's very unlikely that you or I or any of us are going to meet up with an actual black hole anytime soon. So I know that as fears go, this one is not very realistic. And yet it is, for me, visceral, gut level, emotional, and powerful, though it's hard to put into words. And so I want to lean on a theologian, an expert in spiritual matters from about 100 years ago. His name was Rudolf Otto, O-T-T-O. Rudolf Otto talks about a kind of experience that he calls the numinous, N-U-M-I-N-O-U-S. The numinous is that which fills us with awe. There's a sense of overwhelm and also tremendous energy and a sense of the divine, the sacred, the holy. When I think about the idea of a black hole, that's how it feels to me. Awesome, overwhelming, mysterious, and also somehow connected to the holy, perhaps by its very strangeness. Now, if black holes do not carry that kind of emotional and spiritual energy for you, that's fine. We are all different. But I do invite you to come along for the ride for a little bit and listen along with those of us for whom the idea of the black hole does indeed carry that spiritual shudder, that quality of the numinous, the mysterious, the ineffable, because it's really that feeling, the feeling behind it, that I want to delve into with you today from a spiritual perspective. For me, that numinous fear of black holes has its root in a simpler fear of being dragged away from that which is familiar, being dragged away into a space that is completely unknown and cannot be known without crossing the threshold into it. And once you cross, you can never go back. And honestly, I think the fear of black holes is the fear of death. The fear of death, the end of everything familiar as far as we know. Crossing over the threshold of death into what? Into nothing? To annihilation? We don't know. Or into something completely unimaginable from this side of consciousness? We don't know. And I do think this is why so many of us are both drawn to that image of the black hole and also repelled by it. It whispers of death. And when we let ourselves pay attention to that, we may begin to feel the gravitational pull deep in our bones, the slow pull of time itself, drawing us closer and closer to that threshold through which we all must pass eventually, and beyond which lies we don't know what. But there's also something else that I want to share with you about black holes. Maybe you know this. I am not a physicist, but I have been fascinated to read that these days there are a lot of physicists who believe a black hole is the Big Bang in reverse. Black hole, Big Bang in reverse. A black hole sucking in matter to its center, that center of unthinkable density, and the Big Bang, which arose from a single point of enormous density, exploding outward to form our universe. And this is so unbelievable to me. There are even theories that maybe whatever enters a black hole in our universe gets spit out into a new universe, which might mean that our universe, our Big Bang, came through a black hole in some other universe. Can you imagine? If that is so, the black hole is actually the birthplace of everything that we know, the place where everything in our world began, the giver of original life. And I want to just invite you to breathe with me around that. Imagine. So now this really, to me, feels like one of the points where science meets the great wisdom traditions of the world's religions. Because so many religious traditions, including our own, teach that we come from a single mysterious source and return to that source. And that our destiny one day is to get back to where we came from. There's a line I love from St. Augustine's Confessions, his autobiography. And I know, he's problematic in a lot of ways. But listen to this. He's speaking to the mystery he calls God. And he says to God, our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. That movement out into restlessness and return to source. And another thing I want to lift up for you comes from one of the great scriptures of the Buddhist tradition. This is the end of the Heart Sutra, one of the most important Buddhist texts. This line I want to share with you in the original Sanskrit goes like this. I'll put it in the chat in case for those who are on Zoom. Let me put it in the chat so you can read along. It's in Sanskrit. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. And in English, it translates into something like this. Gone, gone, gone all the way over. Everyone gone over. Enlightenment. Hooray! That's the teaching in the Heart Sutra. And again, to me, it feels like a promise that one day we are all going to get back to that original source, nirvana in the Buddhist tradition. And what it feels like to go all the way over cannot really be described in words, but is something like oneness and peace, wisdom and compassion, but not just in little bits, fully and completely realized forever. It is good. And one day the teaching is that we are all going to get there. All these traditions teach us we come from this source, this original point, but somehow we don't know it. Or if we know it intellectually, we don't feel it. Instead, we feel isolated, we feel alone and scared. And out of that isolation and fear, we flail around and we do all sorts of things to try to feel better that don't really work. But what the great wisdom traditions teach us, what we really long for, is to feel and know our connection to our source, to being itself. And so our most important work in this life is to rediscover and reclaim that connection. For some people, that happens in meditation, in other spiritual practices. For love, the work, for some people, love and the work of service to others is what opens the door. For some people, it's science, looking through a telescope or a microscope, wondering at the workings of this astonishing universe. Wherever you find that feeling of connection to life, to source, to love, to wonder, follow that, do that, trust that. And trust that even when we reach the end of this life, When we arrive at our death, the threshold of the unknown, it will be okay. What the great traditions all teach us is that death is not an end, but a threshold, a gateway back to source. The price we have to pay to move through that gateway is everything. Everything we know and love on this side. But what we are promised by the teachers who have come before us and sat long and deep with these mysteries is that on the far side of that threshold is life, radiance, being, essence, union, joy beyond anything we can imagine. And so, though we have feared being pulled back in, though we have been running and running from it, though we are in love with this life, this world, and though we may desperately fear its ending, we can hear the whispers across the threshold that beyond is the one thing that will truly satisfy us. I sit with this image of the black hole, drawing everything toward itself, past that gateway of no return, back to a single point. And it does make me smile to feel that image shifting and changing in my mind, transforming itself from a threat to an invitation, even a welcome, even a welcome home one day. May this be so for all of us and for all beings. Blessed be, and amen.